Okay, so we're welcoming International Publishers Association General Secretary José Borghino in Istanbul, and we are at our office now. And since we have him here, we just wanted to learn about, the global things happening in the world as regarding publishing, and also we want to just get some information about the International Publishers Association. And so I will just ask him some questions, and I think he's eager to answer them. So welcome, José.
Thank you, Ebru. I'm very pleased to be here.
Yeah, we are also very pleased that you are here, but this is not your first time, right?
No, I think it's my fourth or fifth.
Fourth? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And was it always for IPA?
Once it was for a holiday. So.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay. So welcome again, but it will be your first time at the book fair.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. And before we start, can you just tell us about yourself a little bit? How did you just meet with IPA? Did you have any other experience in publishing before?
Sure, okay. As you can tell from my accent, I grew up in Australia. So I was born in Europe but grew up in Australia. And I worked for a number of small education publishers. I started some review magazines. I worked for the Australian government's culture, not ministry, but culture arm, the Australia Council. And then I took over the role of CEO of the Australian Society of Authors. And then I worked at Sydney University teaching journalism. I was an editor of a news magazine, and then I moved to the Australian Publishers Association. And I was working on their media and communications, and then took over as policy director of the IPA in 2013, and then became Secretary General in 2015.
2015, so you are at the same position. This is your fourth year.
Fourth year.
Okay. And as you know, but maybe most of our viewers would not know, that Turkish Publishers Association is also a member of the IPA.
Yes.
And I just want to learn about your thoughts on being a member to the IPA. How advantageous is it for the countries to be a member?
Well, the IPA stands and protects the publishers of the world. So we go to international forums like WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Organization, but we also go to the UN, WTO, a number of other large supranational organizations, and we support and promote what publishers need, which is strong copyright and freedom to publish. So we're the only international publishers organisation that does so. We have now 84 members from 69 countries around the world, with another few that have just joined in Frankfurt.
Yeah.
So we're still expanding, and we talk to government, we talk to ministers, their policy advisors, we talk to the general public about what publishers do and what we need. And
do you think that, I'm sure that you won't have a negative answer, but do you think that the actions that the IPA is taking is just having a positive effect on governments or on issues that you are behind? In means of, let's say, freedom to publish, freedom to write, freedom of speech, or copyright. So do you just get the fruits of what you are doing?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because it's one of those processes that's always ongoing. We have a victory and then there's a setback in a different country, and we have to focus there. It's a matter of always putting out the right messages. It's a matter of always having a stance and a position that supports copyright and supports freedom to publish wherever it's threatened. So unfortunately, in terms of freedom to publish, more and more countries and more examples of individual publishers and even countries where freedom to publish is being threatened. Sometimes by governments, sometimes by non-government interventions. So we have to constantly monitor, constantly respond, and as you know, every year we have the Prix Voltaire, which is for bravery amongst individual publishers and publishing houses. In terms of copyright, it's the same thing. At the moment, the biggest companies ever to walk the planet are trying to undermine copyright. For them, freedom of access to someone else's work, to someone else's copyrighted work, is the center of their business model. They give free access, supposedly free access to content, and then work their own business model, which is based on advertising, around that. What we're trying to say everywhere is that someone who creates something should be paid for that creation, unless they want to give it away for free. That's their decision. But copyright is a system that allows creators to have a living and to have families that eat and the children that go to school, and publishers also have rights to be defended around copyright. We are seeing now in places like the World Intellectual Property Organization, many organizations within that debate about copyright are being funded by the big companies, the big tech companies, and they are wanting to undermine copyright, and we're fighting a strong battle, and I think we're holding our own. I think the tide is turning. I get a feeling that people are no longer so naive to believe that these big tech companies are only doing it for the greater good. They realise that they're making more money than any other company has ever made before. And I get the feeling that our message is getting through.
Great. I mean, as Turkish Publishers Association, we are, most of the time attending all the, we are a member of most of the committees in the IPA, and we are attending to most of them. And I believe that, what you are saying is very true. In Turkey, our visions are getting, broader, and when we attend those meetings, when we see what's happening around the world and the efforts IPA is just trying to put on these issues, as CPI, we just find it very important. So it's just, and thank you for doing this.
Thank you
for the industry.
I honestly believe that the Turkish Publishers Association is one of our best members. You're very active, you're very responsive. If we talk to you and ask you for something, you always respond. We try to do the same with you. As you say, you're a strong and vocal member of our Freedom to Publish Committee, and we're hopefully going to have an Education Publishers Forum here next year in June. So there's many ways that we can work together, and I enjoy it very much.
Yeah, me too also. So let's come to some local news for the viewers. So you are here to visit the Istanbul Book Fair.
Yes.
And you will have a panel discussion tomorrow.
Yes.
When we just publish this video, maybe you would have just be at your country. I don't know, it will be over, but so and the panel will be about the name is just called a global look to the publishing industry throughout the world, and maybe just very shortly, what do you think about the publishing industries throughout the world? Is publishing a shining star, or is it just what's happening to publishing in the world? Because there is this digital issue, and there is this technology, and we have all the smartphones and everything, the audio. So and mostly in Turkey, publishers are concerned on printed books. So, I mean, how is it going around the world?
It depends. Some countries are doing very, very well.
Mm-hmm.
Some countries not so well. But at the moment, it's not a depressing feeling. I think it's actually looking good for publishers. I think the printed book has come back. I don't know if it was ever away.
Mm-hmm.
There were predictions that the printed book would be dead. That's clearly not the case.
Mm-hmm.
Digital books, e-books have, in some ways of counting, plateaued. They've reached their limit, and now they're cruising along. I also don't think I don't think that's true.
Mm-hmm.
I think what that doesn't take into account is self-publishing, especially on Amazon and platforms like that, where a lot more books are being produced that are not being counted. They're not given ISBNs. They're not part of the world database because Amazon keeps all that information for themselves. So my suspicion is that there's more books being produced in more different ways than ever before. I think there are more people reading. I think there are more people interested in books and reading. There's always the problem of multiple distractions. There are other media that people consume, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think overall books are doing very, very well.
Yeah. And how about I mean, do you think that's because you visit a lot of countries? I know that you are in a rally and you are visiting a lot of places all the time. Do you see that, when the governments are the regulations on certain issues of publishing supporting the industry, or how do you feel? Because in Turkey we are trying to just push the government to issues like fixed book price, let's say. TPA is just very for that regulation, and we think that it will be good for the industry. And I just wonder if, do you see that the governments are just helping publishing sector in the world, or are they just left alone and trying to just survive?
Again, it depends on what country you're talking about. Some countries are very supportive. The United Kingdom, for instance, has a very good relationship with its regulators. There are a number of other European countries that are the same.
But do you think that strong relationship affects the industry in a direct positive way?
Yes, yes, I think so. Because when the opposite's the case, you see a downturn. Two little words in the Canadian Copyright Act were inserted in 2012, and those two little words were "and education." And by inserting those two words into...
And meaning E-and-D.
Sorry?
Is it E-and-D?
A-and-D.
A-and-D.
And education. So there was a list of things that could be exceptions to copyright. And at the end it said, and education. And without any kind of definition, without any kind of focus at all. And what that has meant is that a large number of local Canadian publishers have closed down, education publishers, and a large number and growing number of international education publishers have left the market. So you see some decisions by government that are ill-advised. There are some advisors to government that have drunk the Kool-Aid, as the expression goes, of the big tech companies, that information wants to be free, and other cliches like that which are totally untrue and which undermine the possibility of individual creators and publishers making enough money to survive. So we're hoping that the current, the new government in Canada will look again at the Copyright Act and amend it so that that mistake that they made in 2012 is fixed. But there are other examples too, like in Hungary, where the government nationalised the education publishing industry. So there are no more independent education publishers feeding the Hungarian market. There's a number that are looking now outside of Hungary, but the Hungarian market is closed, and it's only government books that are being produced, which is very dangerous, not just for the education publishing or the publishing industry in general, but it's very dangerous for freedom to publish. It means that the government propaganda is what students read. They think this is history, and it's not history. It's one interpretation of history in the history textbooks, for example. So we're fighting that. We're working through the Education Publishers Forum to do something about that, and we see it in different countries in different ways. But again, we do have victories. We do have examples of our advice going to government and making a positive difference for publishers. But it's not just for publishers, it's for, in the education sphere, what we focus on is the best outcome for students. Students, teachers and government. And society.
At the end.
And in the end, you want an educated, informed population to maintain democracy, to maintain civil order. And that's what publishers are trying to do. They're not just trying to make money, which is the way that they're portrayed in some places. They actually, in the best functioning education systems around the world, the publishers are a stakeholder in the education, not just someone or some company that supplies goods or commodities. They're actually part of the system, working with government, with teachers, and with the community to provide the best possible outcomes.
Yes, I mean, I totally agree with you. As TPA, that is what we are trying to do. I mean, trying to just make heard of the voice of the educational publishers here, because we have some problems. I won't go into details now, but and so my last question is that as TPA, we are. I mean, in Turkey, there are lots of NGOs and also the TPA working on reading promotion. And we recently have an EU fund. Now we're managing a project. It's called the Dissemination of Reading Culture. And I just wonder if IPA does have an issue or have a potential, I don't know, maybe a committee or whatever, but any projects on reading promotion throughout the world, because since we've just started managing this project, I'm seeing that all over Europe, especially because this is an EU funded project, so we have to just monitor Europe. But all the countries are, I mean, they are all very concerned on reading promotion in their countries, even if it's the UK or it's Germany. So I mean, does IPA has any acts? Will you have anything?
I mean, you're a member of the IPL committee,
Yes.
Well, that's the committee that is focusing on this type of information and data. Hopefully, at the next Congress in Lillehammer, the 28th of May to the 30th of May, save those dates, we will be publishing a whole lot of research around reading. It's really interesting. There are countries in the world, in Europe for instance, that are saying that readers are disappearing, that they're finding fewer and fewer people who devote enough time to reading a book every day or every week. There are other ways of counting that say, no, the readers are still there. They were always there. We just overestimated what they were before, but they're still there. And there are still other countries that are saying that the readers are coming back. So Spain, I think, is one of those. So we're looking at all of those reports. We're trying to put them together in a way that makes sense. And yes, the the IPL committee of the IPA is trying to work those figures into something meaningful.
So you'll have a large data at the Congress to just announce, and I think we have a research too. Now recently we will just announce it at the book fair, but we will have the whole report soon in December.
Great.
And we'll share it with the IPA.
Please.
Okay. So let's talk about Lillehammer also. Maybe we can just tell something about, because it is open to all publishers throughout the world, right? It is
Absolutely.
not only IPA members, or everyone is welcome, right?
Anybody who is interested in the topics being discussed, and you can go to the IPA website, and there's a link there for the early bird tickets to Lillehammer in Norway. As I said, 28th to the 30th of May next year. It's a full 2-day program with panels, interviews, a whole array of different discussion points on everything to do with publishing, and one whole day on education.
Yeah, so this is new now, right?
It's the first time we've done it.
Okay. We are looking forward to it.
Great.
That we can attend.
Good.
I thank you very much for this interview. I'm sure that everyone will just get use of it a lot.
Good.
And thank you for coming to Istanbul. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thanks.